And how are you?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Star Season Lightworkers Collective here on Quantum Portals. And we have an amazing show for you tonight. We are going to be with Angela Levasseur. She is a long term contributor here to the channel. She is one of our founding pillars of this group, and I am so happy to have her here on the show. It is going to be absolutely amazing tonight. And we have a lot to talk about because we have some questions. And I know that sometimes people are sort of like, oh, about twin flames. And I think tonight we are going to really do a deep dive into the concept of twin flames. And Angela is absolutely amazing, and she always has so much information to share with us. So I'm just trying to get myself started here, but I know that we are going to explore a great deal tonight. And I think I'm going to also open up the phone lines, because I'm sure that some of you might
Sure.
have some. Yeah, so I think that some of us might have some phone calls. So we'll do that. And so, for people who don't know you, Angela, tell us all about your wonderful self.
Okay. Thank you so much, Crystal. I am so very happy to be here tonight, and Twin Flames is very dear to my heart. A little bit about me. I am the founder and owner of the Phoenix Passage, which is a business that helps people who are awakening, but also in various stages. So if they're having challenges with twin flames or with regard to awakening symptoms, or not sure if they are awakening, if they happen to be going through challenges, that they've got gifts that are coming in, those are all different things that I help people with. I also do tarot readings. And I had the first part of my gifts come in at a very, very young age. I was about 7 years old. My stepdad had passed away, and I didn't realize I could see spirits and feel spirits. But it wasn't until many years later that my other gifts started kicking in, and I started learning tarot, took an intuitive tarot course, and ended up in an awakening situation that for the last 2 years has essentially just absolutely snowballed. And when I say an awakening situation, I am referring to the fact that I am now able to not just read tarot. I channel messages from the other side. I channel messages from my guides. I'm very connected to my guides. I'm connected to other realms as well, including the Fae, the dragons, the galactic realms. Um, let's see, I can remote view. I can also astral travel, and I've done that on many occasions. I am telepathic. And some of the other gifts that are sort of coming in is my Akashic, which I happen to be taking a course right now in Akashic reading, and happen to find out my Akash has been open since I was born, which I did not know. But I am very well versed in speaking with individuals and sort of knowing what it is that they require, and usually without them telling me anything. So that's pretty cool. And I also have studied Reiki, and I am also in the process of looking at my shamanic roots as well. So this is all very, very cool and very profound. And if any of that happens to touch base and people are kind of wondering more, they're always welcome to get in touch with me. And I know we've put all of the info there. So I'm very pleased, and I can't wait to help people. That is what I do.
Oh,
That is
that's
part of what my
great.
mission is. And part of I not only am I helping individuals to proceed further on their path, part of my mission is also official first contact,
Hmm.
because I have had galactic contact from many different beings in many different areas. And it's ongoing on a regular basis.
Wow. Oh, phew. She knows
And it's a
so
mouthful,
much.
and growing all the time. It's
And
a
growing all
learning
the
adventure.
time. Absolutely. And, it's interesting because I know that this topic has been around. People have been, kicking this topic around. And I think that, if we were having this kind of conversation, 5, 10 years ago, I mean, we could have had the conversation, but I don't think it was as in depth as it could be right now. And what's so amazing is that someone like you has come along and you're using your gifts to help people, but you're also using your gifts to educate people as well. And I think that's so important. And I'm excited that you are doing a lot of the work with the Phoenix Passage. And I encourage people to read our last newsletter because we talk about the Phoenix Passage as well. We had a article in our last newsletter. And so if you want to find out more about the Phoenix Passage and to get her contact information is down in the notes, but also you can look at our last newsletter and find a little bit more about her as well and just sort of read that. So, yeah, so there's a lot going on right now. And you mentioned the idea of the fact that a lot of your gifts have come online. I mean, you've had gifts since you were 7 years old, but now more than ever, it's really come online. And before we go into the presentation, I just wanted to know a little bit more about how the Phoenix Passage can help people because I think a lot of people, I know that, with the group, I often get people writing to me and saying, I'm so glad that I found the group because I feel like things are happening, things are changing. Can you just expand a bit more on what's really happening right now and how the Phoenix Passage can help people with that, you know?
We are in a time frame right now that is totally unprecedented.
Mm.
And there is a very, very thin veil. I'm sure most of our viewers would be familiar with what that means. But essentially, it's the fact that between the star alignments and planetary alignments, we have never had this much um, chance in basically within our lifetime to be able to interact with our the other side, our galactic brothers and sisters, and with the gifts that we have all been given. And a lot of people do subscribe, as do I, to the idea that we are being upgraded on a regular basis. And the whole idea behind the upgrades is that initially our DNA had a number of facets to it that were hidden from us, very much like the ones that I have been able to open because I was able to expand myself and allow myself to have those gifts. So what's happening is people are finding out, usually by accident, which was also the way that I found out, and I had no one to guide me with the information, that, hey, I'm hearing voices, or hey, I happen to be able to see different realms and I'm not sure what's going on, or, I'm getting really high pitched ringing in my ears, which are downloads. And there's all different ways of understanding this, and not everyone's gifts are exactly the same. But the thing is, with especially with the Phoenix Passage, because I underwent all of the changes myself without anyone's help, I understand how imperative it is to have a safe environment, one that you can talk to people, that they're not going to think that you're totally Looney Tunes. Because let's face it, most people, when you say, hey, I happen to be able to get conversations from people who have passed away, or I'm seeing people who have passed away, they're
Mm.
saying, right, okay,
Okay.
sure you are. But I've been there firsthand. I have many people that I'm very close to that are in my circle that have similar gifts. And it's so, so important for people to realize that right now all of Gaia is going through these types of changes and upgrades. It just depends on whether or not your body is individually allowing you to do that. And if you need help, if you need guidance, if you need a hand to hold, or you need somebody to talk to, you're in the right space right here. Quantum portals is very esoteric, and we all are aware of all these different types of things that are happening at this point in time. I mean, this is an absolutely wonderful and exciting time in our life, and our DNA strands are becoming upgraded on a regular basis between galactics that are out there helping us and the different sun uh not sunspots, but
Mm-hmm.
the solar flares that are coming in. But it's also a huge time of change for Gaia, because Gaia is truly what we are all. As we change, we're raising our vibration, and we are responsible for Gaia. If Gaia does not have her right vibration risen, Gaia ends up being in not a very happy state, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of the reasons we've been having so many very bad earthquakes going on. I mean, she's basically revolting and saying, hey,
Yeah.
you got to take notice because you're destroying me right
Yeah.
now. I mean, we live here,
Mm.
and she is a living, breathing being.
Mm.
Not to mention, we're all connected. So the fact that I am speaking with everybody right now, you are actually being awakened by different various nuances in my voice. I am an
Mm-hmm.
awakener. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that I happened to find out a couple of years ago. And you could very well end up having upgrades just by being on this particular
Mm-hmm.
um, YouTube right now.
Okay.
And it does happen. I've had people respond back to me and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, something weird happened after I watched this podcast. What's going on?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I'm absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot, and that's why I always have you back. I just absolutely
And I
love her. She's on this show. We always have such a good time. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done because 2027 is going to be a very big year,
100%.
and I've often been saying that till I'm blue in the face, and I keep saying to everybody, 2027 is going to be a very big year. Now 2026 was also a big year as well. A lot of people have been waking up as well, and I think that what's interesting with the Phoenix Passage is that you have the necessary tools and the necessary environment in order to help people, because a lot of people are coming online, a lot, and a lot of
Yes,
people just don't
definitely.
understand what's going on. And I think that sometimes we, sometimes I may take for granted that, oh, it's been there, la la la. But a lot of people, some people are still afraid because they don't know what's happening, And this also, in some ways, but not in some ways, but in many ways, it's also reflecting what's happening with twin flames. Now, you talked about also the fact, for example, that Gaia is experiencing a lot of like earthquakes and crazy weather. And yes, there's a certain amount of that is human based, but at the same time, I also feel that there's also awakenings as well. Like she's awakening and she's rumbling and she's sort of getting ready,
Absolutely, she is.
and that's going to reflect as well in our relations, because one of the things that people will notice, and people know I like Bashar, and one of the things that Bashar says is that you'll notice that people start to disappear from your life, new people start to come in,
100%.
and you start to vibrate with different types of people. So this in some way I think is also leading into our presentation about twin flames. Did you want to sort of comment on that?
Absolutely, I would love to. What happens many times as people awaken, because you are literally raising your vibration, what you will find is people who are not at the same vibrational level do fall away, because we are not supposed to lower our vibrational level for someone to meet us. We
Mm-hmm.
are supposed to keep rising, and those individuals that are of a higher level will come in to meet us. And one of the key factors in the twin flame journey is the fact that you have to be at a certain level of healing, first of all, before you will even meet your twin flame. You have to have done a lot of the work yourself initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's balancing your masculine and feminine within yourself. And then once you meet this other person, it is about, specifically for the twin flame, mirroring and rising in each other's vibrations. And how that happens is, as you heal the wounds that you have yourself, they also happen to heal the twin flames wounds. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a really very unusual dynamic. It is not easy. It is not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot of people that really cannot handle it, and they sort of tap out. if that happens, then there is a way that,
Mm.
universe comes in. The other thing that's very interesting is, and you can look it up, they talk about the 144,000 a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times. Many people believe that the 144,000 is also relevant to the twin flames, because the twin flame dynamic, when and we are literally in the first wave right now of twin flames that are getting into their main reunion union.
Mm-hmm.
It is so sacred. It's such a sacred act that what you have to realize, because we are all energy, when that happens, we raise the vibration. It's like being a huge spark. And what it does is it ultimately echoes out into the universe. So all of those first set of twin flames are coming into union and literally starting a chain reaction. Very much like I was saying, we are all connected. So as those twin flames bring their energy in, it raises the collective's vibrations, it raises Gaia's vibrations, and it raises the whole universe's vibrations. And it's absolutely beautiful and profound, but it's also not necessarily a short passage. It involves a lot of solitary work with yourself, knowing who you are, what it is that you need to do, dealing with a lot of wounds that you might not even realize that you have. They
Mm.
could be from past lives, they could be from past relationships, they could be from ancestors,
Mm.
or they might be, from something else. But it's a lot of cleansing and clearing and getting rid of that, and really keeping yourself in a state of love as opposed to anger and frustration and hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you start to rise, the more you start to realize that anger and frustration and hatred has no place in our lives
Yeah.
now. And that is just the be all and the end all.
Yeah,
We are here for
absolutely.
love.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we're going to learn a lot about that tonight because, like you were saying, I actually know of someone who is texting me and he met his twin flame this summer. And he was like, wow. It's funny because he separated from his original partner. And he was like, well, I think we both know that it wasn't working. And then he was actually doing something else. And then all of a sudden, poof, he met his twin flame. And I've been getting all this story about his twin flame and all this kind of stuff. So it's happening. And a lot of people, and I'm seeing that, I'm starting to see people as well going through
Yes.
that.
And funny enough, usually what happens is once you've done the inner healing yourself, and
Mm.
this is very common with twin flames, that is when you figure, okay, you know what? No, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't have to worry about anybody. I'm good on my own. That is when it
Of
happens.
course.
And it is something that you recognize immediately, though,
Mm.
because you realize when you meet this individual, there is something very different. They feel very much like home. There are different similarities, even though you may have been, hundreds of miles apart at some point. You might have totally different upbringing. A lot of the other things are, there could be an age gap, there could be a distance gap, and you
Mm-hmm.
could be having a long distance relationship
Yeah.
as well. And when I say long distance, some people I do know have it
Mm-hmm.
literally, you're talking about continents apart. But what happens is the more that you get to know this person, the more things start to, uh, gifts and wounds start to heal, and the more you start to realize, hey, there's a lot more to this. And that's what usually happens with people, is they get scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one of the components we're going to talk about is going to be the runner chaser dynamic.
Yeah.
So you get scared, and it's essentially you pull back,
Mm-hmm.
very much like the butterfly. If you chase after that person, they're just going to keep on going
Yeah.
further away.
Mm-hmm.
If you just sit back and say, okay, as hard as it is, I'm going to try and understand what is going on. I'm going to work on me and love myself. And self love is huge with
Yeah.
this.
Exactly.
And I'm going to be the best partner that I possibly can to myself.
Mm-hmm.
That person, in all likelihood, if they are your twin flame, is going to come back towards you. There are cases where sometimes that does not happen, but they're
Mm-hmm.
very rare, because there is such a magnetic pull between those two individuals.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't stop it.
Yeah.
And it's an energy exchange that you cannot even describe to somebody. It's like sticking your finger in a light socket,
Mm-hmm.
but it just getting better and better and
Wow.
better. And you just grow astronomically from it.
Exactly. And the thing is that I have this weird before we get started. I keep saying before we get started, but like I just have
No,
it's a
no, that's
story.
quite all right. It's all relevant.
Okay. But I have this weird idea, and tell me if I'm crazy or not. But the certain dark forces on this planet want to keep the energy down on this planet. And I think that they have been purposely trying to keep people from loving themselves and all this kind of craziness, because if people come together in all these powerful relationships, that amount of love radiates. You know what I mean? And it grows, and it just, everybody gets affected by it. Even if you're not in a relationship at the moment, the fact that these two loving people, and you see it and all that kind of stuff, it vibrates. And right now we're in a situation where you have a lot of young men and young women who are hating each other, and the social media is sort of feeding into that and saying, oh, well, men are stupid, or women are bitches, or all that kind of stuff, and this sort of like manosphere type of thing. I feel that that's been put in place specifically to stop people from coming into relationships, because if you stop it, then you stop the light that comes, the vibration, the love that comes from that. Am I crazy, or
I
what am I?
You are absolutely not crazy. You are 100% accurate, and I totally agree. The other thing, and I'm not out here to promote this one way or another, or to say that I'm an advocate. A lot of the other issue that is being pushed right now governmentally is with the gender changes, because when you do not know whether you are a masculine or a feminine, and let's face it, we all have a masculine and a feminine energy within us. But if you don't know which side you actually are on, how confused are you?
Yeah.
How can you, yes, you can still have love with someone, but you still have to be able to love both sides of yourself in order to be able to move forward with that.
Exactly.
And that is one of the biggest things, because as long as they keep people up in the air and juggling, am I this one? Am I this one? Am I this one? Am I this one? Then it doesn't promote anything that's good. It
Yeah.
just keeps people confused. And the same with social media. Look on TV. Yes, all they keep feeding us is fear based. As long as you live in a state of fear, you cannot live in a proper
But
state
that's
of
the thing.
love. You need to stop, and you need to say, no, I am in control of what it is that I'm viewing, and not be afraid to move forward with the true person that you are. And the twin flame journey and the awakening in general helps you to remember who you are at your core, who you always were, and who you chose to be coming to earth during this time frame. And that it's huge, absolutely, just of such a huge magnitude that people don't realize what a difference it makes once you start realizing that all of the things that happened to you in the past are things that have brought you lessons and brought you to the point you are now. And it doesn't matter where you're at on your journey, it's leading you towards the next step and to ultimately being at a higher level than what you were when you started.
Exactly. And, I just want to sort of give a disclaimer. Look, there are people out there who definitely feel like they want to be a woman or they want to be a man, and like no judgment whatsoever. And I just want to make sure that people are not, sometimes I think people might take what we're saying out of context. That's not what it is. It's just a matter of, it's a sense of,
Absolutely
of
not.
root, of where you are rooted. And there are a lot of
Yes.
people who, yes, I've since I've been 5 years old, I've always felt like more like a woman than a man, and that could actually be past life. That actually is more to do with
Yes,
past life
sometimes.
than anything else. If you've had a number of lives that you were a woman and you come into this life as a man, just like a roll of the dice, and now all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel it. So that could also be a past life thing, but that's something else for another day. But I just wanted to just say that if you're at peace with yourself, that's great. But there are a lot of people who are not. And there are a lot of people, unfortunately, I've been reading that are saying, yes, I went through the whole change and everything, but now I think I made a mistake. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? So, yes, if you're at peace with yourself, that's fine. But, it's more of how you feel within yourself. And if you're fine with it, great. If not, then this is what we're going to be exploring this evening, you know?
Yes, another part of that, just that ties directly into it, is many times when you are not at peace with yourself, you are looking for validation outside of yourself.
Exactly.
As as long as you are looking for validation outside of yourself, you're
Exactly
not
right.
at peace.
Absolutely.
Once you can make peace with yourself, your masculine side and your feminine side, hey, we're not perfect. That's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to accept yourself where you are. Once you stop looking for that validation and realize I am enough, and
Yeah.
that is one of the mantras that I live by, then you can start raising your vibration. But as long as you're chasing that outside, you're not going to be happy. And unfortunately, that does happen a lot of times. And then once you start realizing, hey, I can come back to myself, that's when you start growing and healing the wounds and going, hey, where did I learn this from, that I'm not enough because I don't make enough money, or that I didn't do something my parents said I have to do, or that, I'm not pretty enough. Self-worth is a huge one that we battle with, especially for women, but men as well. And it's something that as you come to terms with the fact that no, I'm living my life the way I wish, as long as you are not purposely out hurting people, you can be enough within your own self. And that is when that whole dynamic changes and the healing starts. It's not easy. It is not an easy path, no
No.
matter whether you're going through awakening or twin flame journey or one of the other journeys, but it is very, very important. And not everybody on earth is going to go through any kind of an awakening or journey. Some choose not to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, looking at what we're going to be talking about tonight, what is a twin flame? Can you tell us what a twin flame is exactly?
Essentially a twin flame, and there are many different variations on what it is, but the one that resonates truly is a twin flame is a soul connection that is one soul that comes to earth, that is divided once they arrive on earth into two separate individuals. And what happens is that they literally can spend lifetimes searching for each other. And what happens is when they find each other, they really are mirrors of each other. And they, once they become reconnected, I'm not saying that they become one again, even though physically they will remain two individuals, but they feel like home to each other, because in essence they are, because they were one flame originally. And that's what the definition of a twin flame essentially is. But please don't be misconstruing it, because this can involve many past lives. It can involve many relationships that you go through, and it can involve a lot of sorrow and separation. And many twin flames will go on, because I can delve into people's past lives. It's something that I've seen past lives with individuals where, you think that you're going to connect, and you might first a little bit, but you have not yet reached that union portion. And that's a lot of what it is it's union in this lifetime, and actually, and you promise each other. And the dynamic of twin flames is very often you will feel in your heart space this individual that you know is there, that you know is longing for you. You can hear them telepathically, and you can sense them telepathically, and you can send messages to each other telepathically. You know that you're looking for each other. When you find each other, it's like an explosion is the best way. It's like dynamite going off, because it is just so intense and so dynamic, and it's like, oh my goodness, okay. And it doesn't necessarily happen all at one time. It can happen very gradually, but once you truly understand it, it is life changing.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And it's funny you said that, because the person that I was speaking to, who was texting me, he said to me, I was talking to her telepathically, and I knew that she was coming, and that I was speaking with her, and I know that she was there, and I knew that I was going to meet her this year, and all the kind of stuff. And it was just it was nice. I thought, oh my God, it's really nice to sort of have that. And sure enough, he met her about what, 2 3 weeks ago, 3 4 weeks ago, and it was just like, by chance, and they met each other, and it's just like, wow, he already knew more or less what she was going to be like, and he's going through such a beautiful romance right now, and he said it's just like every day it's growing. It's absolutely stunning, you know what I mean?
It is. And there's a huge heart recognition. Your heart and your soul recognizes this person far before you ever set eyes on them. And you can feel it within their aura and their essence because it is that dynamic when you see and feel this person. And I mean, hey, a lot of us, we're taught to doubt since a very young age. It's like, oh, we don't understand it. Oh, you must be imagining it. It's puppy love. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is your soul recognizing that other individual. And I'm sorry, but there is absolutely no way that you can say to somebody, you're imagining that, because the feeling that you get in your heart space
Yeah.
is like nothing you have ever understood before. And it really is something that totally defies all logic. And that's part of the issue that people in this day and age have. We've been taught to be so analytical and so logical that we look at this and we go, what is going on here? Okay, I must be using it. I must be imagining it. And we're not. We're just not taught to be heart centered and heart led. And
Exactly.
when that happens,
Yeah.
we're taken totally aback. And we have a very hard time accepting it.
Exactly.
And it's funny because without saying it, I do know, without you even saying it, I knew exactly who you meant.
Yeah.
Very, very happy for them.
I'm
I
very
truly
happy
am.
for them as well. It's really, really nice, you know?
Anyone that finds their twin flame, I know there are a few different channels out there, and there's always going to be naysayers and negative remarks, and there's always ups and downs with everything. It's not an easy journey. It truly isn't. And
No.
there's always going to be a coming together and a separation and a coming together and a separation until the wounds and the healing is actually done to a sufficient amount that you can be together on a regular basis and not trigger each other because you're mirroring what is wounded in that other individual. And that's often what you'll find. And that's why it feels so much like you complete each other, because what one might be lacking, the other one has. And that is exactly what that dynamic is. So it's the yin yang dynamic of it. And it's beautiful, but it's also extremely profound and extremely hard on your heart because you have to have so much faith in the journey itself and you need to believe.
Yeah.
Because we're taught all the time, oh, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. Well,
Yeah,
that's
exactly. But
hard.
that's, yeah, no. But that's the analytical mind thinking, and that's also the analytical. And I mean, I apologize for saying this, but that's really the aspect of masculine of the, you know what I mean?
Ego.
I don't
Yes,
mean, you know what I mean. But like I when I say masculine side, I mean the not the divine masculine, because the divine masculine would have a very different approach. But I'm talking about the
absolutely.
analytical masculine that is not that is looking more at, well, is this, like, for example, you look at how people were wed from, like, in antiquity up until like maybe 100 years ago. You had to have the profit match, so it made money, so that it was like, it was more about serving a certain purpose, usually financial, and less about love, you know and but that being said, though, I know that if you're 12 years old now, you might meet your twin flame at 12. You might. I've heard of that, people saying, look, I knew my wife
Yes,
from the age of 12.
it does
But I
happen.
mean, let's be honest, when if I look at myself, yes, I used to like fall in love up and down, at age 12, but it was just more infatuation. And I think that you can be infatuated as well. So how do you know, like, for example, with the first encounter, when you talk about the first encounter, how do I know that it's not, for example, infatuation, as opposed to, because that does happen where you have infatuation and you're like, oh my God, but it's not my twin flame. What is the first encounter supposed to look like at this point?
Well, there is no catch-all phrase for the first encounter. Generally, though, it is very intense. As I mentioned, it
Mm-hmm.
is your soul recognizing this person. They do say that the eyes are the window to the soul. That
Mm-hmm.
is very true. Usually, it feels like home. It feels very comfortable. There are many different synchronicities between the two people. And the other thing is that it doesn't give you red flags constantly where you're basically looking at it and going, okay, this person is basically causing me to have to do things that I don't want to do. It's things that you are
That's it.
very comfortable with
Yeah.
instead of being a toxic environment. So, I mean, if you happen to be with somebody and they are triggering you all the time and you're going, okay, I don't like the way that this is happening, then you have to really look at it. Why is it? Why are you being triggered? Is it because of a wound that you have, or is it something that is deep within the other person where, you're basically letting your self-worth go and saying, okay, well, I'm going to do this so that I stay with this person. If that's what you're doing, then you're not doing it for the right reason. And that is something that is very hard to understand when, of course, we all want to have love, we all want to have relationships, we all want things to go great. But if you are literally trading away yourself and your self-worth and your self-respect to be in a relationship, you're not there for the right reason. And it is absolutely not a twin flame relationship. And it's not even close to being a false twin flame relationship. It is simply something that the two of you should not be together. And I'm not saying go out if you're having a hard time and go and divorce somebody that you're with or go and split up, but it
No.
does make you really question
Mm-hmm.
all of the relationships that you had, because when you finally find a person, then you can look back at those other relationships and say, oh, okay, I learned what my self-worth was. And in my individual case, that was a big flag that I had. It was a huge area of wounding that I had. I did not know my self-worth. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept essentially doing all these things with other partners that I should not have been doing
Yeah.
because I wanted them to like me. So I would give them more of my time. I would give them more of myself. I wouldn't say buy, but there are people that try to buy people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm buy them presents.
Yeah.
That is not what it's about. It is about feeling so at home with that person that it's just being in their presence, being in their time,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it is a sacred gift that you're giving to each other, even if nothing else is going on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
by being in their presence. And it's literally, presence is the key word.
Oh,
Being present.
absolutely. And it's funny because like I have to hang my head in shame because I've been there. And at the same time I also feel that some of us energy workers, some of us star seeds have been through this, and we've been through some really really some dog day afternoons where we just sort of like, my god, what was I thinking? It's funny because I was thinking about this one guy that I knew and I was just all over him. And but at the same time, I remember I was always triggered because I was always like, is he looking at another girl? Oh my god, that girl's much prettier than me. Oh my god, he's gonna like her more than me. And I'm like, this is some BS. And I just thought to myself, wow, I was buying him stuff and I was all this kind of stuff because I'm thinking he's gonna like me. And there is a certain amount of growth that comes because you have to go through that, because I would never do that again. I'd kill myself first.
Yes.
But like, I mean, it's just like I didn't know, but also I realized that I was in a level where I didn't have any self-worth. I didn't have any self-love. I understand that, and but the thing is, like I keep saying, it's also a star seed thing, a star worker thing, where we have been through some really dark times, a dark night of the soul that can last years, or and
Yes.
we have to come out the other side and love ourselves. And I feel that now when I look back on it, I'm just like, I want to throw up. But back then I thought that that's what it was. And so that's a part of it as well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
is. And we as star seeds and light workers very often do go through a lot of trauma in our lives
Yeah.
from a young age. And I know it sounds very unfair, but we have to remember we chose this life because we are energy in a human meat suit. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially, we want to experience all of the different things, which also means not just the good things, it's the bad things too. And really there is no good or bad, it's all perception. But for an example, in order to appreciate the fact of having money, you need to go through a time frame where basically you do not have a lot of money, so you can see what the two, the upper side and the downside is, and it's so that once you understand what that is, you can be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to understand um, a wonderful relationship, many times you have to go through the heartbreak, or you
Exactly.
might have to go through a very bad situation. The other side to it is that sometimes we go through those things because they are a contract that we may, or a vow that we may have taken in another past life,
Mm-hmm.
that our parents may have taken, that our ancestors may have taken, that could just be in our lineage. And those are things that very often people are totally unaware of. And as I've been going through this Akashic record certification course, I've
Mm-hmm.
been learning much more about that. And a lot of it is the fact that we can we can sometimes be entered into contracts not by our own doing, but we also have the ability that if we have served those, or if they no longer serve us, we can actually have them severed, or we can have them taken away. The other thing I'll mention, especially with regard to twin flames, is when we have a number of different partners, what a lot of people don't realize is you are actually taking on the energy
Yeah.
of all, it's not just the partner that you are
Mm-hmm.
currently with, it is all of the partners they may have had in
Exactly.
lifetime, and that energy hangs onto them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, maybe they had five different partners. Well, guess what, you're taking on those five partners, plus you're all taking on the energy of the people that they were with.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start looking at it in that regard, we sometimes
Exactly.
wonder, why do I feel icky
Yeah.
after I've been with somebody? That's a lot of what it is. And we
Exactly.
also have the capability, once you learn how to do it, to cut those cords,
Mm-hmm.
to sever the contracts, to sever the energy. And we really should be, being on our own, and having um our own sexual energy kept to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves until we know that it is the
Mm-hmm.
correct person. And keeping, and this is a topic for another day, but
Yeah.
the sexual energy in itself is a creator energy. And
Absolutely.
that's one of the reasons that, you look at all these ads for Viagra, and you
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
ads for places where they're saying, oh, you need to meet your perfect partner. No, that's not true,
Mm-hmm.
because then you are going out and you're trying to find the wrong person, and you are getting into all these other relationships
Mm.
that do not work. You're giving your energy away to other people
Mm-hmm.
instead of having it for yourself and being able to use it for the creation that you should be, because we create our own realities.
Exactly.
So all those little bits that you've given away to people over the
Mm-hmm.
year, and calling back your energy is
Mm-hmm.
huge. And that all goes hand in hand with,
Mm-hmm.
the twin flames, and just with being your own sovereign being as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Absolutely. And that's it. And you know what? You know that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh, I have to write this down. I'm thinking, I don't have a pen and paper. That's another presentation for you about the
Absolutely it
central
is.
side.
Yes.
I
But
keep
it is one of the
looking.
things I do through Phoenix Passage
I
as well.
know.
And
Exactly.
I've had a couple of other, there was actually a prior quantum portals where I did contracts severing, or not contract severing, cord cutting,
Yeah.
that our viewers can take a look at if it's something that they want to know. And we get into a little bit more on that one.
Absolutely. But I definitely wanted to just sort of point out that this is why it's important to look at something like the Phoenix Passage, because back in the day, there was no talk about being an empath, because I was an empath. I know now. I know, but I didn't know back then. And it's
It
not
was
about,
taboo.
it was taboo, but it was not. But it's also people just didn't know. Like I just honestly did not know. For all the information that I knew at the time, the whole idea of being an empath and taking on other people's shit, like taking on other people's stuff. I had no clue about that. And when I look back, I think, oh my God, I took that on. And so if you're intimate with someone, and it does not mean that you're sleeping around with everybody, but if you're just intimate at a regular, whatever regular is, then you
Yes.
take that on. And I just had no clue about that. And so there's also an aspect, and I think that that's what's interesting about the Phoenix Passage is that I wish I'd had the Phoenix Passage when I was in my 20s and
You
30s.
and me
You
both.
know what I mean? Like, I mean, it would have been nice to have that, to have someone to give you the direction to say, like, okay, try this, figure this out, do this, do that. And so, thank God that you and a lot of other workers that are out there, but thank God you're doing this because I think it's going to help a lot of people on the right path and to also keep their energy for themselves as well, because that is just so intrinsic. But I just wanted to just read a couple of comments that we've gotten. I know that a little later on we're going
Absolutely. I
to,
love to hear comments.
yeah, we're going to take the phones a little later on, but for now, I just want to just read a couple of comments. And this is an interesting question from Daniel Kitten Toes. Hi, Daniel. Can it, and I think she was referring to something we were talking before about can a twin flame be a platonic? I think that's what she's trying to say. She says,
Yes.
can it be platonic, like a best friend, genuinely curious, as I've never spent that much time learning about this? So, did you want to sort of answer that one from Daniel Kitten Toes?
It can absolutely be platonic. It does not have to lead to a romantic relationship. However, there are other kinds of relationships besides the twin flame. There are karmic relationships, in which case, a lot of times, those have a lot of guilt and shame and toxic traits. And they're to teach you lessons about what it is you will and will not accept in your life. But you can also have friends, and there's soulmate relationships which are very similar to a twin flame, where they are to teach you lessons and to help you to rise spiritually, but where you are, it could be a mother and daughter, it could be parental, it could be platonic, it could be somebody who has a bit of a romantic interest, but it just depends on the way that things progress and whether or not you're feeling in your heart space what it is. Because the feeling with a twin flame heart space connection is very different than that of a soulmate. It is you literally recognizing that individual from other lifetimes. And as I mentioned, um, some people, and I do know this for myself, I have been able to see myself with this individual in many past lives. And they don't look anywhere near what they do right now. I've seen us in many, many past lives where, it could be on a different planet, it could be as a different being, it could be on a totally different realm, but you always recognize that energy as being the same. And it's that energy recognition that sets it apart as opposed to being a karmic lesson. Let's face it, a lot of the things that we go through, regardless of how young we happen to be, is, even if it's a parent or a friend, you keep getting taken advantage of. Well, that's a lesson. That is to teach you to set boundaries. And very often, boundary setting is one of the key components to a soulmate, or sorry, soulmate as well as twin relationship, because it's not allowing yourself to be less than what you actually are, and
Exactly.
to know you are worth that person's time. If they're calling you just out of the blue whenever it is that they feel like they're going to call you, that doesn't make you feel very good.
No.
And that is one of those things where you have to decide to yourself, what is worth my time? Is this person worth my time? Do they mean that much? Is it something healthy? Am I growing from it? And in a twin flame relationship, you will always grow, and you will both grow, not necessarily at the same speed, but you will heal wounds. You will both heal different aspects of yourselves that you may not even realize exist, but it will not be toxic in any way, shape, or form. Yes, you may trigger things that are there because you're a mirror to this person, and what you show them is where it is that they happen to be lacking. But that doesn't mean that it's only a lesson. The lesson is there, but you continue to grow from it. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just have another couple of comments here. I have one here from Lilith Jesus 7718. And I think this is referring back to at the top of the hour when we were talking about, gender and all that.
Yes.
And they say, for me, the confusion happened while I was trying to fit myself into the binary boxes. The clarity came as I allowed myself to be as I truly felt inside, which has always been non-NB, which I think is non-binary, which is
Yes.
fine. And so I wanted
And
to just make
that's
sure
not
that
a
was clear,
problem.
that we were not
Yes,
passing judgment
absolutely.
here.
No, there was no judgment whatsoever. And what people may not realize, I know some of our viewers may be aware of it, there are many star nations that are neither female nor male.
Exactly.
They are both. And
Exactly.
honestly, they don't even have relationships the way that we on earth do. Theirs is all energy exchange. And when you have that energy exchange with someone, you cannot even be touching them. That is the a huge difference with twin flames is you could just be in that person's energy and you can feel them glowing. You know that this is a person that is meant to be for you. And that is a very much of a discernment thing where we don't realize that very young because people don't say, hey, how does their energy feel? If you're not aware of how your energy feels, how are you going to be aware of how somebody else's energy feels with you? I mean, yeah, there are times where you might go into a room and you can feel that, especially if you're an empath, other people's energies, but there might be people that are there and you feel like yuck and you don't understand why you feel this yuck towards that individual. That's all energy work, and that is something that as you are awakening, and that means that you are partially awake if you are feeling those things, but that's all things that they happen to become more refined the more that you get into the awakening and into different types of um, discernment and different vibrationary levels. The higher you vibrate, the more sensitive you are to people's energies. And there is no way, shape, or form that you can dismiss that because there are people right now that I cannot be in their energy. And if I'm in it, it makes me feel very off. It makes me feel very lethargic. It makes me feel nauseous and physically ill.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's important. And I think that some of the tools that you give people with some of the work that you do is how to protect themselves so they don't have to go through that. You know what I mean?
yes,
That's pretty important.
yes,
Yeah,
because we need to protect our energy. And let's face it, there are people out there that are, we call them
the
vampires. They're
vampires.
energy
Yeah,
vampires. They just thrive off of other people's energy. And we need to, especially if you are an energy person, if
absolutely,
you are a light worker, if you're an empath, we shine very, very brightly. We are
absolutely.
like a lit match in a dark room. And it doesn't matter who it is that you're referring to. If they feel your energy, they come to take your energy.
Yeah,
And that might be the only thing that they want. And I'm not trying to say this to be a mean
no, no,
person, but narcissists feed off of energy, they feed off of our
absolutely,
reactions. And that's all stuff that I get into too with the Phoenix Passage and
exactly.
learning how to not give your energy away to people and learning discernment of being an observer instead of playing into energy. But when you are with the right person, you don't have to worry about that because you don't have that happening on a regular basis because your energies just mesh and match and they feel like home.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to just let people know that we are going to be having Angela come back to do a presentation on the Phoenix Passage itself. We're still working on that date, but she's going to be definitely coming back for that. And she's also going to be talking about Akashic Records. So there's a lot coming up with Angela, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. But the first stop is going to be the Phoenix Passage. I wanted to read a little interesting comment from Daniel Kittentoes, and she was, I think, sort of, giving a shout out back to Lilith Jesus. She says, "Thank you, and I got your back. You are perfect as you are. It's the other people trying to fit in their neat little box with a middle school understanding of biology that needs to kick rocks." And it's true. And I think that one of the things is that right now, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before, that for someone who's a Gen X like myself, yourself, we grew up in a time where it was just like, I mean, the school's Victorian. Like the school system is really
Yeah.
based on a Victorian, outdated, idea, and it doesn't even have to be about gender. It can just in general, like, I mean, the idea of what your intelligence is, what, how you feel about your expression, about all that kind of stuff. All of that is shut down in school, and you're just, programmed, and you're indoctrinated. And the true, and I think that's the reason why, for example, when children are born, they have high psychic abilities, and once they enter school, it starts to go down because it's stamped out. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's just, it's awful. It's just like sending lambs to the slaughter. It really is. And I'm glad to see that, at this age right now, I meet a lot of people who have children, young children, and you're starting to see a lot more schools that are starting to really just sort of have a better understanding of children and a better understanding of what their gifts are. And we're being much more, the parents today are much more understanding of the fact that their children can be special and different, as opposed to, let's say, being Gen X. You grew up like latchkey kids and you were like, shut up, and just do what you're told, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that a next generation or two are going to be very different, because I see that Gen Alpha is different in many ways. There's some things that they need to work on, but I think in general they're off to a better start. What do you think?
They are definitely off to a better start. And you're absolutely correct with regard to the programming. But you have to realize, too, when the government can fit us all into these neat little rows where we are just like lab rats, and essentially we they say jump, we say how high, and we are looking at that as a programming from a very young age. That's exactly what happens to us even as we get into adulthood, where we go into a job and we are expected that we are going to work. We're not going to really have a whole lot of savings. We're going to keep on paying our money out, but it's a way of keeping us always dependent upon other resources instead of dependent upon ourselves. When you start awakening and you start realizing, I can manifest whatever it is that I want because I am that powerful of a being. We are all energy. Every single one of us has that capability. We just need to learn how to unlock it for ourselves. That's dangerous. It's dangerous to the government because they lose all credibility.
Absolutely.
And it
But they
means
use all
that all
control. There's also that
programming,
too.
exactly. But they essentially don't want us to get to that point. And right now, there are more awakened individuals on earth than ever before. And the government is starting to panic and
Yeah.
scramble. And that's why a lot of times you'll see all these different types of negative information on television, because if they keep you in fear and they keep you wondering and in a loop, then you're not ever going to exit that loop.
Exactly.
But once you start understanding that you can depend on yourself and you can awaken and you can get out of the programming, and awakening is literally unlearning everything that we learned. It's not an easy process, but it is so worth it. It
Absolutely.
truly is. And it's something that is absolutely crucial to be able to continue to go to the next step.
Yeah.
Because when you start realizing that, you realize how truly powerful you are. And it's being powerful in a non egotistical way. When you pull the ego in with you, that is not good. That is not the way that this is meant to be. It's in a loving way that you are literally, once you get to a certain level, you're there to help other people understand and to grow. And that is what the whole connection is with everyone else. Because as you help other people to grow, they help other people to grow as well, which is an
Absolutely.
exponential, and it comes out in a huge magnitude for us. And that's what it's all about. That's what this journey is about, is us all glowing together. Think about how wonderful life would be if everybody on earth was, and I'm not trying to be facetious when I say this, it was happy, and we didn't have people who were constantly, not receiving what it was that they required, that they had enough food, that they had enough money, that they had enough of whatever, instead of people saying, oh, I'm superior to you. That's egotistical.
Yeah, that's narcissism right there. That's narcissism, but
Exactly.
that's a whole other conversation for another day, because that's that, you know what that is? That's this whole way, this whole matrix has been designed in order
Yes.
to, to satisfy a certain creator that is not really the true source, and has put us in this horrible situation where we have that kind of narcissism and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's a whole kettle of fish that we'll go down that another time. But for now, I have an interesting comment here, and this is interesting, and this could be a very interesting question for the night. Velvety Claw. This okay, so what she's saying describes a relationship, but I think she's talking about like the twin flame, and she says it describes a relationship I have, but we are both married. And I think what she's trying to say is that the person, she's married to one person, and this other individual, or he's married. I don't know if there's a man or a woman, but I'm just saying the one individual's married to their partner and another individual, but they've met, maybe for example that they met at the office and now they have this connection. And she said, describes a relationship that I have. We're both married, and that other person's expecting a child. It's the most real, encompassing love I've experienced, and I don't know how to address this connection with them. That's interesting because that does happen where you are married
That
and you're like, oh,
very often happens.
yeah.
Yes, it
What happens
happens
there?
far too often. Um, that's it's a lot of it
That's tough.
depends on the ins and outs of it. Very often, because you can have telepathic communication with the individual, that is generally the best way to talk to them. Chances are, and please do not take this as any be all end all advice because that's not what it's meant as. Very often what you will find is that person got into the relationship that they are in thinking that it was the right relationship
Exactly.
and that this is going to fix it. So again, it's looking for validation outside of yourself, and they realize this is not what I want. But by that point in time, it's too late.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there are many different scenarios that can happen with something like this, but it is extremely common
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
the two individuals will be married to other partners. And, unless you can actually remain friends or stay in contact, very often what happens is it just means that you met your twin flame in this lifetime, but you will not necessarily be together in this lifetime in the sacred union that you need to be.
Absolutely.
However, what you experience in the 3D, which is on this level that we are all communicating on right now, does not mean that you are not together already in the 5D because
Actually, can I just
so
actually? She just mentioned. Sorry, sorry to cut you off, but the person mentioned
okay.
that Velvety Claw said in another message. They said, "I see them in astral travel in past lives." So I just wanted to cut you
Okay,
off and
there
say
you
that.
go.
Sorry.
Yes. No, absolutely. And that's what I was going to say
Yeah.
is chances are you've had lifetimes together and that you were meant what it essentially means is you've had many lifetimes together already and you kept promising each other that you were going to keep finding each other in every lifetime and in a future lifetime or a I mean there is no past, present, and future technically, they're all ongoing that you will reunite at some time. So this is the closest that you've come right now. That doesn't mean to say that in this future lifetime, you won't necessarily, be able to meet because if you truly believe and if the universe is if you have both gone through a proper level of healing, if you both heal the wounds that you have, there is a very high chance that you will unite at some point in time. Who's to say what will happen? I mean, I will give you a scenario. There's any number of things that could happen, but they might divorce, you might divorce, there could be someone whose spouse passes away, or there could be any number of different things that happen that eventually end up bringing you to a full union. We don't
Absolutely.
know
Yeah.
because we cannot assume anything, but you need to believe. And if you are already in astral travel and meeting them in past lifetimes and you recognize their energy, it's definitely your twin flame. And I
Absolutely.
100 times over because of the experiences that I've had and experiences that I've helped other people with. Because you
Absolutely.
will always know who that individual is. They can change 1,000 times over. You will always recognize
Yeah.
their energy and they will recognize yours.
Absolutely, because it's not about physical; it's about the energy. Also, Velvety Claw just sort of clapping back here, and they said that this person here. Let me just sort of find it here. There's a couple of comments going on here. They are also a mirror of the things I love most about myself. They might be the best part. I'm just going to read the last comment though. And Velvety Claw says, "So I wonder if this person feels it too. They're a master of reading energy. Personally, I think they probably know. I mean, it's not like you don't know, because you know if the other person, you like another person, they don't know. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
and generally it's a very hard topic to broach even when people are awakened, because
Mm-hmm.
how often do we go out and we meet somebody and it's like, "Oh, I wonder if they're into something." I mean, for instance, for me, I'm always wearing crystals. So if I happen to see somebody who's wearing crystals, then I might be able to open up that topic to
Yeah.
them. However, if it's somebody that, you might start into a minor conversation and right away they're like, "Oh, I don't believe in any of this, it's this or that," then you know enough not to broach it at that point
Mm,
in time. Doesn't mean to say they won't change later on.
yeah.
So usually if they are, and if you know that they can read your energy and you've had that kind of an experience with them, I would say there's a really safe bet that they
Yeah.
are your energy, and they might not understand it,
Mm-hmm.
because, and especially if they happen to be male, a lot of times males for
Mm-hmm.
some are not as open, not all, and I'm not trying to put
No, no,
everybody into,
no. But it's,
but many times males don't understand the energy the same way as females.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, in a twin flame relationship, the female has already reached a higher vibrational state
Mm-hmm.
than the male. And what happens is he needs to work on himself and rise up, and then she will rise up, and then he needs to work on himself and rise up. And that's why they have that runner chaser dynamic until
Mm-hmm.
he reaches another state. But it's very, very common that usually the female is the one in the lead.
Absolutely. And last message from Velvety Claw says, I'm really blown away. Thank you, Angela. And yes, thank you, Angela. And I mean, if
Oh,
you're
you're very, very
interested,
welcome.
Velvety Claw, get in contact with Angela if you want to discuss this topic more, because I get the impression there's a lot. It's too
It
much for the
sounds like
show.
it.
But like, I mean, there's a
Absolutely.
lot I think you might want to discuss there. You know what I mean? But I do have an interesting comment here with October Rust 1313. And they say, would you elaborate on what it means to recognize their energy? I think it relates back to Velvety Claw about the energy. But October Rust 1313 is saying, would you elaborate on what it means to recognize their energy?
Well, there's different ways of recognizing someone's energy. So, first of all, in order to recognize an energy, it's being, it's a feeling that you have within your heart and your soul. Um, if you happen to be dreaming and you happen to have a dream and there's somebody in your dream, so this is sort of a cursory way of explaining it, and you think, I know who this person is, but I can't see their face, but I recognize, my body recognizes who they are. Chances are that's you recognizing their energy. If you happen to be in a crowded area, or maybe you're in a coffee shop and you happen to look across at somebody and your eyes meet, and you just get that instant recognition of why. It's almost like a deja vu,
Mm-hmm.
where why do I recognize this person even though, as far as I'm aware, I've never ever met them
Yeah.
before? That is you recognizing their energy. There's many different levels you can do that on, and a lot of times, as I said earlier on, you recognize it in, it's your soul that recognizes it in past lifetimes first before recognizing it in the 3D. And much of the work that we do in healing ourselves is done behind the scenes by our higher self. And that is just the way that it works, because you can talk to that individual and you can say, you can ask the universe, please bring forward my twin flame, bring forward the person that is my highest soulmate. If you are not ready at that point in time, that's not going to happen, because what you'll start getting is triggered by other individuals to figure out what it is that you need to work on in yourself to raise your vibration high
Mm-hmm.
enough that you can have that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually what all of these prior relationships we have with anybody else, whether it's romantic, platonic, individually with a mother, father, brother, sister, that's usually what those are doing,
Is
is
that
they
the
are
mirror
teaching you
effect?
lessons.
Is
That
that
is
is
the
that
mirror
the mirror
effect.
effect that we're talking about
Yes,
sometimes? Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
that mirror effect is profound, because until we start realizing what it really is there for,
Mm-hmm.
it is to show us the parts of us that are wounded and to start healing that. so that we can be whole again instead of looking for validation outside of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think the mirror effect is definitely something that happens. And you will be with someone and you're like, but how come all this stuff is happening? It's because they're triggering, they're bringing that out for you to sort of like bring it up and to heal it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to just finish a couple more comments here, and it's from two people, but I think they're asking more or less the same thing. It's about cord cutting. So I'll read the two comments, and I think you can maybe answer the two because I think that
Okay.
it's okay.
Absolutely.
So the first one here is from Jessica Luoma 485. And Jessica says here, how to cut energetic ties with a twin. When we are together, our energy gets stuck in our eyes and my gut, and it's too powerful and negative. And then there's another comment here. I think, yeah, from Danielle Kitten Toes. Anyone else have telepathic conversations and you see other people aren't in a state with, or feel that they are or feel what they are thinking? I need help cutting a cord, though, for a long time vampire we don't even speak. So there's
Oh, okay.
couple of things here. So the
They're
first, so
they
Jessica was talking
are
about cutting.
separate.
Yeah, so Jessica's cutting, just to recap, Jessica's talking about cutting energetic cords because she feels stuck. And then Danielle Kitten Toes is talking about the cutting cords because of an energetic vampire. Okay.
Okay, they're two totally different things.
Okay.
And really, your best bet would be to contact me. I do have a discovery call that is free for people,
Mm-hmm.
30 to 45 minutes. So if you want to email me at angela@phoenixpassage.com, I can certainly teach you that procedure, because there is a procedure and there are different things to use for protection. But in short, to answer the first question, you're saying that this is, you're feeling it in your gut and it's getting stuck and that it's negative. That's not your twin flame then.
Mm-hmm.
That means that it is someone who is triggering your energy. If you are with your twin flame, there is not a reason that you're going to want to cut cords. This is somebody who is giving you toxic ties back and forth. And if you want to do a cord cutting, yes, there are ways to do it, but you also need to protect yourself. If you are being triggered by them and you're not healing the wounds that you have, you're going to continue to be triggered by them. So it could just be a case of that. Normally, if it's your gut, that is your, I always get them mixed up, solar plexus or sacral.
Mm-hmm.
Chakra, which could also have some blockages to it. So there's a little bit more to it than meets the eye. But again, if you want some more information, send me an email and I will help you out because I need
Mm-hmm.
to know a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the energetic vampire,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that, again, you can do a cord cutting. I can explain that to you because if you look back in quantum portals, there is a show that I did that is completely about cutting cords.
Yeah.
You can go into that and it teaches a practice of cutting cords. However, you also need to know how to protect yourself so that that doesn't happen again. In the second case, it could also be something that is going back, ancestral lineage, or in other lifetimes that you've had that also needs to be cut. So it's, again, it may not be as quick and simple as what you think, because sometimes when we do the first one, it doesn't necessarily work. And it's because it's a little bit deeper than what you realize. And it could also be a lesson that you're needing to figure out, why is this person siphoning my energy and what kind of proximity you have. You said that you don't even talk to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously some sort of connection that you still have. You have to remember, every time that we interact, whether we're interacting out here with social media or interacting one-on-one, you've got a string tying you to that individual, and you maintain that connection unless you actually do your cord cuttings, do your cleansing on a regular basis. They do stay there. And that's something that we aren't taught in general, because it's just not something that people are aware of. And that's one of the reasons I come out and I tell people about it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I think this is a great way to sort of segue into the whole runner chaser dynamic. And then I think after that, depending, we can maybe, depending on how much time we have, we can take calls a bit later. But I just wanted to sort of, because it sort of ties into the whole idea of, if this is the right person for you, you don't have to chase, you attract each other. You know what I
Correct.
mean? And so, and because, when people think about karmic love, there's a karmic fire. You know what I mean? Like that also, I mean, we talk about it, but what does that actually feel like though? Really,
Well, a karmic fire is essentially you, it's not an infatuation. It's
Okay.
very, very different than an infatuation. And I mean, hey, we all want to be loved. We all want someone to be there and be a best partner to us. So, if that person is meeting you on an energetic level, they are meeting you on a spiritual level, they are meeting you where you are at an emotional level, and they're not causing you to constantly, that they leave your sight. And it's not just, okay, well, I want to still be with you, but I understand we both have our lives, etc. It's not thinking to yourself, okay, they're out of my sight, what are they doing, what do I need to be afraid of? Those are fear based. And that means there are still triggers that you need to fix the wounding for. Could be that you were in a childhood where basically, your mom and dad were gone all the time. Could be that you were very often, made to do things on your own. It could be that somebody said, you know, uh, you're really not wanted, or that you were made to feel less than. Those things are toxic, and they're things that you need to do the healing for. Um, with the runner chaser dynamic, as much as you basically are whole and you are magnetizing each other, what happens is you get to a level, and your body, because we are not used to being in such a state with someone and feeling accepted, we go, okay, I have to be imagining this. There's no way that this person is this good. There's got to be, you wait for the other shoe to drop. You're going, okay, what do they have that they're hiding? So your mind plays all these tricks on you, and that's your ego thinking it, because a lot of times we don't realize, yeah, we're worth having somebody like this. But we're taught from such a young age that in order to have something, we need to do something, or we need to put forth something, or we need to buy something. Your body always goes back to that because it's an old learned habit, and it's unlearning all of those different things that we did and accepting the fact that, hey, I can actually be worthy of something this good. And a lot of it goes back to being in a state of receiving. If we keep being told, um, okay, no, you can't receive this because you didn't put out something.
Yeah.
So
You
it's
didn't put
that
out.
old saying,
Yeah.
basically, hey, they want to take you out and wine you and dine you, and then you know what that means, or it's, hey, we're going to do Netflix and chill. That's not what this is about at all.
Yeah. No, no,
That
no.
means that it is a false dynamic, and you've got things, or else they're looking at it from an ego perspective, where I'm out to get what I want for the goodness of myself. That's not what this whole journey is about at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really it's important for people to protect themselves, and I think this is the message that we're really sort of trying to put out here. And I
Yes,
mean, yes,
absolutely.
without sort of, encasing yourself, but rather, making sure that yes, you can be open, but not like so open that you become a target. And there you go.
And having boundaries. I mean, boundaries are very important. And knowing that, okay, I will give an example. So, way back when, I made a little list, and you have to remember, when we speak, those words are very powerful. The universe hears everything that we say, and it does grant us our wishes. So, if you write down information and say, I would like a partner that is kind, that's one thing. If you go into detail though and say, I want them to be, kind, that they are, loving, and they're genuine, and they are emotionally stable, then you're adding that additional information. The universe hears that information and it really does respond to it. But you also have to think to yourself, you can't put too many parameters on certain things. Like you can't say, well, they've got to be, I will say this with tongue in cheek. You can't say they've got to be like, you know, 6'7" and they've got to be blonde haired, blue eyed,
Mm,
you know, thin, whatever, because
yeah.
that's a little bit excessive.
Yeah.
But if you say, okay, they need to be physically fit, they need to be healthy in the way that they eat, you know, I don't care what color hair they have, I don't care what color
Yeah.
eyes they
But if I'm
have.
attracted to them, if I'm attracted to
Exactly,
them, then it doesn't matter because you never know. You think you
exactly,
have a type, oh, yes, we look like Brad Pitt. No, but then you meet this guy, and you're like, oh my God, he's so hot. And he doesn't look like anything
exactly.
like
And
Brad Pitt, you
that's
know?
exactly. And that's exactly what the universe does. I mean, there's an old saying, you want to make God laugh, tell him what you want.
Yeah.
Because he's going to somehow throw something in and kibosh it. But you need to know what you are willing to accept. So for yourself, if you know that you are at a stage, you know, write yourself a list and say, I'm willing to accept individuals that have kids as long as I know that this person is good to their kids and they're going to be good to their pets and they're going to be good to me and that they're, you know, mentally stable and financially stable and what have you. You know, you might meet somebody who's not 100% at those stages, but it could be that it's something you're to work with together so
Exactly.
that you both grow and you both heal where it is so that you can help. If it's somebody who's just taking advantage of you,
Yeah, no,
then that's not going to be your twin flame
no,
by any
absolutely
means.
not. Absolutely not.
And that's you having to learn to raise your boundaries and your levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go to calls, I think we have time for one more sort of like look at this whole topic because in it, like we were talking about the mirror effect and about how the mirror
Yes.
effect can sometimes, change certain things and it can sometimes sort of bring up certain issues. And the mirror effect is important because sometimes you don't know what it is and you think about why do I always keep meeting guys that are like XYZ or why do I keep meeting women that are XYZ? And I think that the mirror effect is very important for that because it holds up a mirror and allows you to see exactly what it is you need to see. But that being said, there's also once you realize what's going on, and I think you talked about it before at the top of the hour. You were saying sometimes you need to go through a dark night of the soul in order to
Yes.
go because sometimes like I was saying before, I had these relationships where I was giving too much and I was this and I was that and I just was like the doormat, you know what I mean? And I think that there's a lot of trauma in the past as well, and ancestral trauma that I brought into this life with myself. But also, I had to go through a dark night of the soul to really understand and to really and be on my own and figure stuff out. What is the dark? I mean, I know what the dark night of the soul is, but what is the dark night of the soul, and what is it in relation to the twin flame? Because it's a passage you have to take. You know.
It is a passage that you have to take, and sometimes you go through several of them. Essentially, what it is once you get to a certain stage in your life, especially if you are looking for relationships, it's essentially you recognizing that, okay, I I'm always triggered by individuals that have kids. Why? Is it because I'm jealous? Is it because I'm getting, I want attention? Is it something that I don't have any children or I have children? So I'm using a very broad example. But if it's because I'm getting jealous, why am I getting jealous? Is it because that person's not paying attention to me? Or is it because I am not comfortable being with myself? And part of the whole twin flame journey is being okay by being with yourself and being comfortable and being able to make your own fun, taking yourself out, loving yourself, treat yourself like the important person that you are, and learning to treat yourself with the self love that you deserve. Once you can do that openly, and we did talk a little bit about this at the beginning, it's knowing I'm okay whether I have somebody with me or not. And that person is an added bonus. So what happens is when you go through the dark night of the soul and you go through, and it can take weeks, it can take months, it could take years,
Yeah.
depending on how much wounding you have. Um, it's recognizing in yourself, okay, I understand this is the kind of wounding that I have, and I'm jealous because I want attention from this person 24/7. That's not going to happen. So, do I need to go for counseling? Do I need to, start making time for myself? Am I so fixated on this individual that I'm basically, a leech and I'm not allowing things to progress? Am I trying to force something? If those are things that are happening, then that means you're not ready yet and you have healing still that needs to be done. And there are so many different levels of the healing. It could be something that you look back and you say, oh, okay, when I was a kid, I didn't get the attention that I should have had. So I need to make peace with it myself and realize the fact that I never forgave my parents, or I was always, a latchkey kid, or that,
Mm.
these are the reasons behind it. And once you start to recognize that, you can look at it more and say, okay, I'm not as triggered by it. You might still have levels of triggering. You have to remember a lot of the healing is like an onion. So you're going to peel back a layer, you're going to fix that portion of it. And then as you go further up in your growing, you're going to realize, oh, okay, here's another component. Maybe my grandmother never paid attention to me, or maybe there were a constant times within your lineage where there were a lot of divorces, where people, that parent, when you were divorced, never came and gave you the attention that you required. Okay, so is that why now I'm being triggered by it? If you can start healing those things, or realizing the fact that, instead of arguing about it, that I'm okay with not having all the attention on me all the time, then you're going to start leveling up and you're going to start realizing, okay, I'm not going after this person and chasing after this person for the wrong reasons. I'm good. And that person can feel your energy, because let's face it, if you're chasing after somebody, what usually happens is they start and they run. And it's because they can feel that you're desperate. If you're desperate, then you're not in it for the right reasons. If you are capable and you're willing and you know that when you're together, it's like, hey, this is a gift to me. I appreciate the fact that you are very busy. You've got a life. I've got a life. And if they can see that you've got a life, it's going to be a much easier transition. Where if all that you're living for is the next time you're going to see that person,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have a life and you don't have work and you don't have kids and you don't have,
Like
other
hobbies and
hobbies,
things.
etc.,
Yeah.
exactly, then that's what happens. Is it's almost like, okay, well, why don't I have these things? What is it I'm not comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
within myself? Why don't I have hobbies?
Mm-hmm.
How come I never decided to do that? I mean, even if you're reading, there's all sorts of self-help books out there. There's all sorts of other things. Could even be that you've got a chakra imbalance that you're not aware of. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a whole other story into
Yeah.
itself. But a lot of that can be healed on your own and should be healed for you to go up to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are not healed, you're going to either continue seeing that lesson until you've learned the lesson,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunately what universe does,
Mm-hmm.
is it will keep bringing you into that same circle and loop. So like Crystal was saying, you keep meeting the same person with this same type.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you haven't learned the lesson yet. Once you learn the lesson, you can be free of it and you
Mm-hmm.
can go on to the next thing. So it's
Absolutely.
very, very important to start recognizing those things. They're not always easy to see. Sometimes we're too close to it, and sometimes we need to see it from somebody else's view.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I will caution our members about is the fact that very often, if someone has not been in a twin flame relationship, what happens is you'll go on a wild goose chase and you'll find all this other information on the internet or you happen to find all these rabbit holes that you're going to go down, or you're going to talk to your friends and they're going to say, oh, you're losing it, and you're just chasing after something that doesn't exist. That's not necessarily the truth. It means they do not understand it, and they don't have the capacity to understand it. They're trying to make it a logical thing. There's no logic to it.
Mm-hmm.
The logic does not exist in the way, in the analytical way that we are taught. This is something that you cannot weigh it by logical means, because it defies logic,
Yeah.
because it is energetic and heart led. So if you are a heart centered individual, you're going to have a much easier time
Mm-hmm.
understanding it. And if you are someone who, you are constantly giving to other people, that is something that we need to learn how to receive,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something very often that we have a wound with. And
Mm-hmm.
it's learning to be able to receive that love from another human being, because otherwise we block ourselves from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I had to learn, that yeah, I'm worth receiving these things. And
Absolutely.
I'm a big enough sovereign being that I
Mm-hmm.
can accept it
Mm-hmm.
without automatically saying, okay, well, what do I have to do to get it? There doesn't have to be a reason to get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of who you are and what you bring to the table as you are currently.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying, and it's not falling in love for the potential that person has, although that can be very good. It's looking at who they are right now. And I mean, we all grow. We are all growing. We are all learning. And it's an ongoing thing that we do for our entire lifetime. If somebody says, I'm done learning,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
then they have no
you're
idea
gonna
what they are.
die.
Yeah, no idea what's going on,
No,
because that will
exactly.
never stop.
Absolutely. And before we go to the calls though, I wanted to say that I went through that whole thing where I was like after this guy and I had nothing else. I was like, and it was just crazy when I look back on it. I'm like, hang my head in shame. What was I thinking? But the thing is that I also looked and I realized that again, there's a lot of ancestral inherited karma there that I didn't deal with, and I also had to let go of that. And I would like to address that though, because as much as my mother was, I love my mom. I absolutely love her, and I miss her every day. But I think that she also inherited stuff as well, and growing up a latchkey kid and not having anybody at home, being an empath, so I felt a lot more like I had much more intense emotions. But I think that at times she would say things like, why do you keep following me, and stuff like that, just little things, that, like, I mean, I know looking back she never meant, but I mean, it was a different time, and I think that parents really back in those days didn't understand that what they said affected children. I mean, now people understand it, but back then they didn't. And so I think she often pushed me away. And so the person that's supposed to be showing me how to be in a loving relationship is out there pushing me away. And I'm able at this point in my life to understand what that was. But you see what was happening at that a young age, where you are learning from the age of being born to the age of let's say 7. Those are your formative years. Those are the things that you're learning on how to, that are imprinting on you. And if you're a parent, if you go, and I think it's important to look back at what kind of childhood did I actually have. You know,
Yes, that
if
is
you look at that,
100% true.
that it then and that shows. And again, I don't blame her. She was going through her own growth and all that kind of stuff. So I don't blame her. I'm just saying, when I look back and all the work that I've done over the years, I said, oh, that's what that is. Because I always chased guys that were pushing me away, because that's what was giving, that was the formative aspect of my childhood. My mom was a
Yes.
single
And the
parent,
other, well, and we have to look at too, when, and it's not just our first generation, this can go back many
many
generations.
generations. Yeah.
If you look at what kind of a childhood did your mom and dad
Oh,
have, or your,
yeah.
in this case, your mom, a lot of them, they grew up during the wartime,
Yeah.
where their parents might be supporting a household. There
Mm-hmm.
might have been multiple kids at that point in
Yeah.
time, so that they did not get the attention.
Mm-hmm.
You might have had to grow up really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So there's all these other factors. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things that I've learned with this Akashic reading courses, you can often cut some of the cords you can also go back to your Akashic records and look at your lineage. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I've learned very recently. I mean, I knew that you could look back in your records, but I didn't realize you could actually clear a lot of that karma and that wounding.
Yeah.
The other thing that is extremely important for people to realize, and this goes for whatever it is that you're doing, you need to learn to forgive. You need to learn to forgive yourself
Yeah.
because you did the best that you could at that point in time with the knowledge that you had. But you also need to learn to forgive the other person, even if it means that you are still going to be hurt by whatever it was. You have to understand that person was doing the best that they could at that point in time with the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that they had. And we don't forgive for the other person to say that, hey, it's okay what you did. We forgive them so that we can move on and we can move forward. I've had some very horrible things done to me over my lifetimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I can honestly say and this is one thing that many, many light workers experience.
Yeah.
We, despite all of the hardship and all of the things that people have done to us, we move forward with love. We do not ever give up on the fact that there is still love there. And we do not give up on the fact that, there are good people in the world. Because the minute that you start saying, I'm sorry, there's nobody good in the world anymore, then basically you've lost the battle.
Yeah.
But every light worker that I've ever known
Mm-hmm.
has gone through many, many, many struggles,
Yeah.
and we still have love in our heart.
Mm-hmm.
And we do believe that there are true loves out there, that we are going to find our soul family, and that
Mm-hmm.
we are going to be reconnected, in a loving fashion. And the people that are not meant to be in our energy and not meant to be within our circle are going to fall away, and those that are meant to be there are going to find their way
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, especially over the last few years, there are
Yeah.
people that I have lost, but when I look back at it and I say, okay, well, what was this person bringing to the table? What was this person's beliefs? Were they truly of the same frame of mind as me? I mean, I had one person specifically that basically said to me, you're delusional. You have no idea what you're talking about. There's no such thing as whatever this is.
Yeah.
I knew
XYZ.
right away.
Yeah.
They were not for my energy,
No.
period. And they fell away. I also have people though, and it's very interesting because once you find your twin flame or your soulmate, or once people realize and they can feel you pulling away, they can feel that. So what happens is they start coming towards you,
Mm-hmm.
and you continue on your journey, and you have to basically leave those people behind, but
Mm-hmm.
they can feel that you're being left behind, and they start chasing after you. But you have to look at it with discernment and say, what is this person bringing to my life?
Exactly.
Are they just trying to chase me because they want my energy and my light?
Exactly.
Not quite the same thing as a
Yeah.
vampire energy, but they are
It's along the
feeding
same
off of
lines, though.
your.
You
Yeah,
know.
very, very similar. And people don't realize many times light workers bring love and light and good things to people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start coming out of your life, those circumstances suddenly start to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a few people that have said that to me, that, oh, after you were out of my life, I had all of these weird things that happened. Well,
Mm.
I'm sorry, but that's what happens when a light worker leaves your life many
Exactly.
times. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way the universe makes it work,
Yeah. Exactly. Too bad
because
for
we're
them.
catalysts.
Exactly. I'm going to put it out there now. I want to talk a little bit because once we've done the work and we have, because the light workers always, like you said, always manage to find a way to the light, and that's our superpower. But once that happens, and we have been broken down, and we've been, we've had all these pieces, and we're building ourselves back up together again. We start to now look at the masculine and feminine. And I want to continue talking about that. But before I do, I want to just tell people that we're going to open the phone lines. And so I'm just going to open the phone lines here. And I just want to give everybody our number if they want to reach out to us. It's 263-379-5389. And I think that the moderator will probably put that number down. So if you want to call and, you know, make a comment or ask a question to Angela, then we're here. We can ask questions. So while we're waiting for the phone lines to light up, I wanted to sort of just go on and talk about once we have broken ourselves down and we're building ourselves back up again, we have to start to address the idea of rebalancing ourselves and rebalancing ourselves with the inner masculine, and healing the inner masculine and healing the inner feminine. Did you want to just sort of go over that with us about how that's done?
I can totally do that. So many times, and every individual, it doesn't matter whether you are non-binary, if you are masculine born that way, feminine born that way, we all have a masculine side and a feminine side. And generally, the way that you look at it is the feminine side is the nurturing, giving side. The masculine side is generally the protector, working side. And that's not to say that women are not out working. It's to say that usually what happens is, the feminine is so busy. So, I mean, in my case,
Mm-hmm.
you're so busy looking after everybody else that, you know, maybe you're building your house at the same time and you're going out and you're working and you're doing all of these different things. But if there's an imbalance where, because I'm too focused on my work and I'm too focused on trying to make a life and trying to make things happen for other people, that I'm letting go of my feminine side, then I need to be able to balance that, where it's like people are offering me help and I'm not taking someone's help. That is part of what a feminine needs to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So as you start realizing, hey, I have a wound where because in my particular case, very often I had to do everything on my own. And that happened in my marriages, that happened in my kids, that happened in many different circumstances where I was the breadwinner, but I also had to take care of everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
very seldom took care of myself,
Mm.
but I didn't know how to receive because I never had anybody outside who was trying to give me help.
Yeah.
So there was a huge imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, what happens when that happens is you need to be able to turn around and say, okay, I'm willing to accept that. Whether it's just a friend who happens to call you, whether it's somebody who might come into your life and say, "Hey, I can do this for you. I can give you a little bit of a break, or I can watch your kids." Or just somebody who is literally willing to give you their time and their effort and their presence. But if you're not used to that, where you're saying, okay, well, what is it that you want in return? Then that's your ego speaking. So when our ego starts speaking and we start looking at it from the wrong point of view, we're imbalanced. When you start realizing to yourself, hey, yeah, okay, I can accept this person coming into my life, and I can accept that this person wants to do something kind for me, and I don't have to necessarily do something in kind back. Maybe they want to just make me a nice meal, and very often it comes down to things like that. It's like, you know how to cook, I'll do the dishes. That's a give and take, but
Mm-hmm.
those little changes could be totally life changing for you if you are somebody who doesn't know how to give and receive properly. And there's very many of us where we've been single parents, we've had to take on everything on our own. So learning to balance our masculine and feminine internally is crucial, because it's not until we have a good balance of that that we really can even start to accept somebody else into our life in a proper way.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that especially it's funny because you're saying all that about how you're the breadwinner and then you also have to take care of everything else. And I mean, again, not to sort of bring it just down to women, but a lot of women, especially women in their late 50s and upward, have a tendency to be in that situation where they're having to do the job at the office, then come home, take care of the kids, then come home, and then and also at that age, maybe you start taking care of your parents, and so now you have your parents as well and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard because as women we're always taught to give and not to receive. So there's also, I think that's also a big change coming up where we have to learn how to nurture ourselves, You know what I mean? Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
nurturing ourselves
Yeah.
and being one of the best ways that it was put to me when I was going through my journey was self-love is crucial, because what happens is if we do not love ourselves, eventually the universe is going to teach us
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, you don't want to take care of yourself, then I'm going to put you into a situation where you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
And what is often said, especially if you're going through a balancing or a twin flame relationship, is treat yourself as though you are the lover that you want or the person that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Take yourself out on dates. Make sure that you nurture yourself. Do little things. You don't have to necessarily go and spend a ton of money. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it very, very um, budget friendly, but it's the fact that you take the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you can't be good to yourself, how are you going to be good to somebody else?
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? Just go to the spa, get a
Yep,
massage, do something.
yep.
That kind of thing. Guys, where is everybody? We have the phones.
They're
Open
all
up.
shy.
Where is everybody? There's a lot of activity in the chat, which is great. We read some of the comments, but
Well,
it's
tomorrow night we have a discussion group on this. So, if you want to get
you
into the
know
discussion, but please call in tonight.
yeah, call in. And it's funny because I feel this dovetails into the next topic, which is you once you learn to surrender and let go, once you surrender and detach, and you let go of the control. And I think that this is a big thing, and I know that this was a big thing for me, is that I always had to have the control. And and it's like, yes, to a certain degree, if you're in your job, if you have stuff to do. I mean, when I'm doing the podcast, yes, I make sure that I have stuff in control. I make sure that things are going to get done. You know what I mean? Like it has to go on. The show has to go on, literally and figuratively. But in general in life, one of my biggest lessons is having to just let go and let stuff happen. And
Yes.
because
And
if
it
you
is
don't
so
detach,
hard.
let's expand on that. Why is it so hard to detach and to just surrender and all that?
We have been taught from such an early age that we have a set parameters of things. And this is something that they teach us on purpose because, when you have control, that's your ego side speaking, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have control, supposedly that's going to make you happy. Well, look at the circumstances. How happy are you because I can't control how long something is going to last?
Mm-hmm.
If I happen to be commuting back and forth to work and I give myself, an hour and a half because I know approximately that's how long it's going to be, and I'm trying to control that. So I'm driving too fast, I get pulled over, or traffic is really at a standstill and I'm going to be late, or, my car breaks down because it overheats or something like that. How much am I really in control? I'm not. So essentially, a lot of that, when you take it and you bring it down to us wanting to control our lives, that's not how it works with the universe. The universe brings us the circumstances that it does so we can learn from all of those experiences. And whether we see it as a good experience or a bad experience, that is our perception. There is no good or bad. It is how we personally perceive it. you know, I might, if I look at it and I say, okay, my car broke down. What is this lesson? What is it that I'm learning from this? Oh, okay. I should have checked my water pump. I should have done maintenance on my car better. It's something that I need to make sure I check my fluids before I leave or on a regular interval. There's always some sort of a lesson there that we need to learn. And normally, when we start detaching can be done with love. It's not trying to hold on so tightly to that outcome and saying, okay, it has to be on this day and it has to be in this fashion and it
Mm-hmm.
has to be at this place. you know Detached from it and say, okay, well, you know what, uh, I'll be happy if it happens in the next 2 years, and it can be any place, and I'll be happy if it happens to. And I'm not saying that you're going to turn around and say, well, I really don't care what happens. If you can say that, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with the belief that it will come in divine timing. And the universe knows when it's supposed to be there. Especially when we have big manifestations, things take a lot longer because they're big. The universe has to put all these little ducks in a row for it to happen. Maybe I'm supposed to meet this person through another person, through something different that goes on. When you start looking at the chain of events and you look back at it, you go, oh, now I know why I was at this place at this time and this happened. But as it's going on and you're going, okay, well, I really want to, I'm going to call all of the chat lines. I'm going to be on the chat line. Chances are you're not going to get anywhere. All you're going to do is get frustrated and have all these cords that are really unnecessary happen to you, in all
Exactly.
honesty.
Exactly. And I just have an interesting question here from Danielle Kittentoes again. She says, "What?" And this is an interesting comment because I do hear about this, and I'm interested as to whether this is considered a twin flame or whether this is considered a karmic relationship. And Danielle Kittentoes says, "What if someone with you're with someone who is negative, but that you can see there's good in them as well. I think that you can see good in them too. Is that a twin flame? This stuff is confusing for me personally. I mean, I'm okay with being alone, but I haven't been searching. So, is there a time when you can, I have my own personal thing on that because sometimes I think we also, if we're with someone who is not the best, we sort of give them a hall pass, and maybe we shouldn't be giving them a hall pass. Or there's a time when you see someone is actually trying, if they're at least trying to be better, you know, I don't
Yes,
know. What
absolutely.
is that? Is that twin flame or is that karmic? What are we talking about here?
Well, it depends because it could be either. What you have to understand is it depends a lot on when you say negative. Is it something that you're viewing as negative because of your upbringing and because of certain circumstances? Or is it something that is toxic, that they have a wound that needs to be healed? Or is it something that they, by could be by virtue of their religion or just different nuances in your upbringing, that this person is flat out rejecting? Because they're all different scenarios. If it is something that you are always getting into an argument with this individual and they're always bringing it up, um, okay, I'll give an example, and it's not necessarily going to be in the same realm.
Mm-hmm.
This person doesn't like the way that I cook meats
Mm-hmm.
because they don't eat meats, period. If it's something that you think that's negative, it's just the way that maybe they're a vegetarian, maybe
Mm.
and they're vegan, etc. That doesn't mean that it's negative. It just means that the two of you need to come to some sort of a mediation
Yeah.
with regard to that type of an issue. Because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to end up not being together, period.
Yeah.
Either they're going to change or you're going to change, or you both need to change.
Mm.
So many times it's looking at it realistically and saying, why am I viewing this as negative? But as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking at someone's potential and you say, oh, okay, um, I'll give just a funny scenario, and I know everybody will laugh. Say you happen to meet somebody and they are, let's for the sake of it, say they're in their mid 50s, but they decide that they are going to let their hair go gray and, they've got a few wrinkles, whatever, but you want them to look younger.
Mm-hmm.
Then what are you going to say? Is it that their outward looks that you're falling with, or is it their self that you are falling for?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's their heart, it shouldn't matter to you what they look like necessarily. Yes, it's wonderful to say, hey, it would be great for you to do this. But if they decide to do that on their own, that's up to them. It's not something that you can necessarily force. That's wanting to go for their potential, because in your head you're going, okay, you look great the way that you are, but you'd look way better this way, and this is the potential. Those are very often, especially for light workers, when we look at people that need work and we want to have a project, if that's the kind of person that you are going after, that means that there are still wounds that you need to fix within yourself. because it means you are not comfortable with how someone acts, looks, is, what their behaviors might
Mm-hmm.
be. And I'm not saying that you need to constantly, be in an abusive relationship, because that's not what I'm saying at
Mm-hmm.
all.
No.
Those are things that very often you need to set your boundaries. But when you're looking at who is it that I keep going for, is there a particular type of individual, that they have no education? Well, then maybe you should start looking at it a little bit more in depth and saying, okay, well, I want to make a point from now on that they have to at least be working, and they need to have at least a grade 12 education, if not some sort of college degree. Those are things that you can basically change on your own without having to look too far outside.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start turning around and saying to yourself, oh, I'm never going to find anybody because of whatever,
Yeah, well, you
that's
said that in
exactly
my,
what
yeah,
you get. That's exactly what you're going to get,
yeah.
because you do not believe that there is somebody out there for you. Not everybody is meant to be in a relationship, but we are all meant to have lessons. And the
Mm-hmm.
lessons themselves are what we need to look at when we are with different individuals.
Absolutely.
So, when
Yeah,
you look at a negative and a
exactly.
positive, it depends on, that to somebody else, what this person might have as a negative behavior isn't necessarily negative. If somebody's picky because they keep on pulling out, they see spelling errors all the time, or
Mm-hmm.
they want things very specific, that just means that they are very uh, detail oriented. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's all how you perceive it to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah, but if they're also detail oriented, because I've met a number of women who were even older than me at the time when I was single at the time, and they were like, well, I remember this one guy that I met. He met this guy. He had a partner, and this guy was perfect. And I remember when I first heard about them, I said, "Oh my God, this guy's perfect, and he's great, and he treats me well, and he's great in bed, and all this kind of stuff." And I remember saying, "Oh my God, I'm so happy for you. You finally met a great guy, and everything was perfect." Such a great guy, and he was finally in love with this great guy, and I said, great, good for you. And then about weeks later he says, oh, I had to split up with him. I said, oh my God, what happened? And he says, well, he didn't take a shower. I said, what? And he said, well, because he woke up on Saturday and he didn't take a shower, and he was just going to leave the house, and if he doesn't take a shower, then I can't. And I just thought, wow, like, that's picky. Like, if this is a guy's smell and he has, like, bad teeth, like that kind of thing, like, I mean, fix your hygiene. But it's just that, like, on Saturdays, sometimes you want to kick around the house, you don't want to take a shower, not a big deal. I just feel that sometimes people use it as a deal breaker. And I'm thinking, the guy was so perfect. You listed all these good things about this guy, and you allowed the fact that he wanted to sort of, sleep in on a Saturday and not take a shower as a reason for splitting up with someone. I mean, that's stupid. And I don't think you ever found a nice guy like that again. So, I mean, the universe sends you something good. Don't be so stupid that you are not gonna, you know, split up with someone just because of that. You have, like,
And very
come on.
often that is what happens, is we look at it and we go, oh, it's too big, it's too good to be true, so I've got to look at it and nitpick it
Mm-hmm.
and find out where are the flaws. If you want to look for the flaws, you're going to find them.
Mm-hmm.
However, look at the flaws in yourself too.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it that you have? I mean, not everybody is going to, be neat and tidy in the bathroom, but if
Mm-hmm.
it's something that the two of you can agree on and say, okay, well, I'm not going to leave my toothpaste and my toothbrush sitting around and
Mm-hmm.
toothpaste in the sink, as opposed to,
Not
you know,
flushing the toilet or
I'm
something crazy.
exactly,
That's nuts.
there has to be a give and take. And a lot of that is just learning to work with somebody, because we all are going to have different things that we like and that we dislike.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know what's a deal breaker for you and what's
Mm-hmm.
not. Because ultimately, like, I mean, hey, you want to meet somebody and then they start telling you, oh, yeah, I cheated on this person and I cheated on that person and
Oh,
whatever. That to me is a
red
deal
flag.
breaker. I'm
Bye.
sorry, but that's, yeah, but if it's something that, hey, I had a really bad relationship and I
Mm-hmm.
needed to go outside of my relationship because we both agreed that this was what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
um, then that's a different story. And you need to look at, what, once you get into those kinds of situations, talk to the person. Communication is so key.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people just assume that this is where this person's going to fall, and they're going to fall between this line and this line. That isn't necessarily the case. Maybe they're over here. Does that mean it's a deal breaker? It might be, but once you find out the rest of the details behind it, and if you are with somebody and you're talking to other people that they know, or you're listening to
Mm-hmm.
other people, there's always more than one side to the story. There's their side, your side, their friend's side, and a truth.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to remember things like that too, because too often we judge. This is not about judging people. This is about opening your heart and going, okay, I am going to allow this to unfold in a beautiful way. And if little bumps come up in the road, I'm not going to turn around and throw everything out. I'm going to say, how can we fix this together? And that is a big part of it. Because let's face it, when you start going through a dark night of the soul, or you start going through the separation phase of a twin flame relationship, there's all these things that go on in your head. And it's because we don't trust ourselves, and we don't trust because we're not taught to trust. It's like, okay, I trust that the universe is working things out. This person is healing, and that this is what's going on. They're not out gallivanting around with other people. They're
Mm-hmm.
not doing whatever. Maybe they're really dealing with an issue with their health, or their work, or their kids, or with something else. You don't know. But who are you to judge? Because if you did that, how would you judge yourself?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
there's a lot of different nuances to it, and it really does make us start looking at ourselves and going, okay, how much could I live with myself if I did that to me?
Mm-hmm.
Can I? Can I really? Is that why I avoid time with myself? Because
Exactly.
I don't want to face the demons and the shadows. I mean, we all have things of ourselves that we don't love.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into dark night of the soul and we start going into relationships, we have to learn to love the parts of us that we don't like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming to terms with those and realizing they don't make me a bad person. What they make me is the person that I am. There were reasons that those things happen. I can forgive myself. I can move forward. And if the other person truly sees who you are, and they realize that these are not things that you necessarily, are planning on um, repeating in your lifetime, but that you've gone through. I mean, let's face it, not everybody has had a rosy life. It just doesn't happen. But is
Absolutely.
somebody going to judge you
Mm-hmm.
because, you did something when you were younger that you regret? Stop judging yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
did the best that you could with that time in your lifetime. We all
Exactly.
have things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about, the forgiveness, because I think that that's sort of where we're at right now. And especially on this planet, we are really looking at not only forgiving ourselves, but also contributing to a larger picture, because I feel that twin flames and these relationships, yes, they're very nice, and if we have them, we can live them. But I think, as sort of like what we were talking about when we first started the show, is that they have a higher purpose, and that there's a higher purpose for all these relationships, because the planet is going through. And I think that also ties in with what you're saying, is that we're all one, we are all connected. And so a lot of what we're doing right now is leading to a higher purpose. Can you explain how these relationships relate to the higher purpose of the shift that's happening on the planet right now? Could you talk about that?
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the twin flame relationships, it's also us awakening. So as you go through the different steps and you realize, I've got a wound that needs healing, I can heal that, I can move up a level. So we raise our vibration. So the brighter I'm going to glow, the more I'm going to affect other people who are also trying to heal and grow. And ultimately, take a look at it. Take two or three people and put them together. Take a drop of water, put a whole bunch of them together, you get a sink full of water. Take millions and billions of them, you get a lake and an ocean. And that's essentially what our energy is doing. So as we are raising our vibration, because we are ultimately healing who we are, we're never going to be 100% perfect, but we are energy. We are perfect the way that we come to the table as of right now, but we are always learning. We are always healing. We are always, as long as we can become better than we were the day before, then we are on a healing journey. If I can enlighten one person by what it is that I am contributing, by what it is that I'm saying, by what it is that I'm teaching people, then that is what I am supposed to be doing. And ultimately, when I do that, I'm not just raising my vibration because I've healed myself. I'm raising the people out there who have now said, oh, that makes sense. Hey, I can raise my vibration. So if I do that and it's, 5 or 6 or 10 or 50 people, then all of their vibration raises, which means our collective also raises, which means Gaia also raises. And the twin flame journey in general is all about transformation. It's taking us from the person that we were and healing us and healing us and healing us until we're at a stage where, you know what, hey, all those things that used to trigger me don't trigger me anymore because I've learned to love who I am. I've learned to love other people. I have unconditional love. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't necessarily get hurt by something, but I'm not going to be reactive and become hateful and all of a sudden say, okay, that's it, I'm done. It's learning to understand that we all have different parts of ourselves that we may not like and that we can work on. If like I said before, if you happen to need to go to some sort of counseling, or you need to talk it out with a friend, or you need to do a self-help book, or you know it's like someone who wants to lose weight. There's all these different methods that you can look at. The part of it that's important is that you start, whether it's that you're going to increase your exercise, that you're going to change your eating habits, that you're going to eat more healthy, that you're going to get outside help, whatever, but you got to start. So when we start starting and we start climbing up this chain, us transforming ourselves, especially with a twin flame, because we come from that same initial flame, twin flames, by virtue of them healing themselves, heal the other individual. It all happens behind the scenes. It doesn't necessarily happen, so that everybody can see it.
Yeah.
But usually you can feel an energetic change. And twin flames are extremely tuned in to their partner's energy. So very often, if someone is having a bad day or they're going through something that is very emotional, you can feel that from that individual. You might sense it in the astral. You might sense it in, when you're in an alpha theta state. You might sense it just the way that you are. But it's also learning to recognize your energy and recognizing other people's energy and knowing what belongs to you and what does not belong to you. And that's all part of this whole lesson as well. But it's transforming you into a higher functioning being at a higher vibration.
Absolutely. And, I think we are all learning along the way. Like you said, it's a real journey and we're all along the path. Some of us are a little more further ahead, some of us a little bit in the back, but we're all along the path. And I think, especially at this point in time, especially in human history, where all this shifting is happening for the planet and also for human beings, and especially if you're tuned into the show, I mean, you're looking to shift into the 5D with everybody else. So, like, I mean, I think that we're all learning lessons and we're all sort of growing. Before we close up, what are your closing reflections on, like, what would you like people to walk away with this evening? What's the closing reflection here?
One of the biggest things that I can say to people is, if you think you are with a twin flame, just because you're going to go through some rocky times doesn't mean that you're going to give up. If you are not with a twin flame, again, don't assume that you're going to go through rocky things and you're going to give up. And I'm not saying to, as I mentioned before, to stay in something that's abusive. But if you are in a relationship or with even a friend that, is not meeting what it is that you believe they should be, have you had a conversation with them? If you haven't, Where in your boundaries do you need to change your boundaries and raise your boundaries so that you don't allow that to continue happening? Maybe you've got a friend who basically all they ever do is talk about themselves, or that all they ever want to do is get together when it's convenient for them. That's not technically a friend. That is somebody who is being convenient when they feel like it. And that is not what a friendship is supposed to be. A friendship, a true friendship, is knowing that somebody is there for you. And if they are meant to be outgrown, then it's something that it does happen. And there's a reason why it happens. I mean, I had some very, very dear friends that they were brought into my life, and I very rarely speak with them now because I have raised up my vibrations and levels. They have just done things differently, and they're just not meant to be within my energy in the same way. But I know that I am moving in the direction I am supposed to be. If you start second guessing it, then that's something that you need to look at. Why am I second guessing it? Is it because I am desperate? I'm not happy with my own validation, that I am looking for validation outside, where, I've always got to be out in a coffee shop and I need to always have a validation from somebody else. Why can't I look in the mirror and say, you know what? I truly love who I am. I truly love, you don't have to like every aspect of your life,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a great saying that Neville Goddard says, and it's, isn't it wonderful that something marvelous is happening to me today? Say that to yourself every single day, 2 or 3 times a day, and see what happens, because you start looking at the world with the wonder of a child, and you start realizing all the beautiful gifts that are there. If you go through life and you decide that you don't want to recognize those gifts, even though they're being handed to you on a platter, then the universe is going to start going, well, you know
Yeah.
what? If
Yeah,
you're not
never mind.
recognizing them and you're not thankful for it, then
Okay, bye.
I'm not going to give you the same things, and your things are going to change. But if you start becoming present, then you are going to start recognizing, be thankful for the things that you have. And if you are lucky enough to be in a relationship with somebody, be thankful for all of the beautiful things that they bring, even the small things, because they are taking their time to be with you out of their schedule. You are a gift to them. Your presence is a gift to them. They are a gift to you. And that's how you have to look at it, because they didn't have to do that. They chose to do it. And we
Absolutely.
are the ones who make the choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I wanted to just show people, if you want, because first of all, this has been an incredible presentation. I mean, every time Angela comes on, it's always better and better. And like, I'm just like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? So I wanted to just say, Angela, I absolutely love you. And I am so happy that we have a friendship. I really am. And
I value our friendship very
very
highly as
much.
well. And I am so, so thankful that you are always so welcoming. And I'm very thankful as well that I'm able to bring insight to
Yeah.
individuals, because, had I not gone through a lot of the hardships that I've gone through, I wouldn't be able to be the guide that I am or the mentor that I am. And I'm very thankful that we have platforms like this that
Exactly.
I can help people on, because they didn't exist 20 years ago,
No.
25 years ago. So, everybody who's out in our audience right now and all those that tune in later on, you can watch this, you can learn from it, and not
Exactly.
be totally out in the middle and go, I have no idea what the heck is going on
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
because that's what we went through.
Exactly, absolutely. And I just wanted to just share with people that if they want to reach out to Angela, this is her contact information. So I'm just holding up this card now. And it's the Phoenix Passage, Angela Levasseur. She is the founder of the Phoenix Passage, and she can be reached by email at angela@phoenixpassage.com. And you can also see the phone number there. I'm not going to say it out loud, but it's there on your
Yes.
card. And also, she has a Facebook page as well. And it's www.facebook.com/the Phoenix Passage. So, excuse me, check her out. And like I said, she's going to be coming on the show a number of times in the next couple of months. And we have a lot of work to do
Yes, we
She's
absolutely
going to
do.
be helping us to move forward in this time because it's very important, a lot of the work that she's doing. So please take advantage. Please come back and watch the shows with her, and also take time to contact her as well.
Yes, if you've
So,
got questions, contact me because, as I said, I've got discovery calls where we just chat and figure out what it is that I can possibly help you with, or at least steer you in the right direction to figure out, is there one or two different things? Is it just one? Is it something else? Might be something that you're not even looking at it from that perspective.
exactly.
So, and please come on tomorrow night for our discussion group so we can discuss this tomorrow evening as well.
Exactly. So we're going to be having our discussion group. So if you're part of Meetup, you'll be able to get that information and join us. And if not, if you don't have time, you can watch this presentation again. And if not, you can always contact Angela again. You can just contact her by email at angela@phoenixpassage.com. And if you enjoyed a lot of the work that we did tonight and the conversation we had tonight, you're really going to thoroughly enjoy working with Angela. She's amazing. And I absolutely vouch for her 1,000%. So I just wanted to
Well,
say
thank
thank
you,
you again,
Crystal.
Angela, for being with us. And there's our contact information. And I also wanted to say thank you to our some of our members tonight, Lilith, Jesus, and we had here Kelly. Hi, Kelly. And
Hi,
Kelly
Kelly.
was here with us tonight. And Danielle Kitten Toes. Thank you so much. I love that name, Kitten Toes. And we had Velvety Claw as well. Thank you so much for your questions, everybody. And for and Hybridor. Hi, Hybridor.
Hi, Hybridor.
And October Rust 1313. Thank you so much for your question, guys. You really had some really great questions. Jessica Luoma 485. Thank you again for your question. And I'm so glad that we had. I would have liked to have had some phone calls, though. It would have been nice to speak with you, but maybe you guys are a little bit shy. And that hopefully we will see you tomorrow at the discussion group. But check us out on Meetup, and also check out some of the videos as well. Check out some of the videos that Angela has done as well. She did like she mentioned, she did a show about cutting cords, and she really talked about how we can cut cords, and that's a part of our healing as well. So that's also part of some of the work that she does with the Phoenix Passage as well. So check that out. And like I said, we're going to be having Angela coming back again. The next time we have you, Angela, you're going to be talking about an interesting topic. You're going to be talking about the Fae, which is actually
I
very
am, and I am
interesting, you
going to
know?
be partnering there with Kevin Estrella because
Mm-hmm.
we have both had interesting um, dealings with the Fae as
Mm-hmm.
well as dragons and a few other things. But
Yeah.
Kevin has some pictures. I've got some photos as well that I'll be
Mm-hmm.
sharing with our audience. And, a lot of people say fairies don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I know 100% that they do.
They do.
And a lot of the realms we don't see. And again, this is part of what you go through with awakening,
Mm-hmm.
that they're existing and coexisting right with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of whether or not you have an open enough mind, open enough heart, and whether or not you are right minded and heart centered, that you are able to see all these things. And I cannot wait for that one because it is going to be amazing and phenomenal and
Absolutely.
very magical.
Very magical, absolutely. And I think that as the veil is thinning and as the our vibrations are getting higher, we're going to be able to see these things. So before people are, oh,
I
that's so
agree.
weird, what's the matter with you? But now we're going to be able to see it. So more and more people, similar with UFOs, a lot of people weren't seeing it, and then now everybody dime a
100%.
dozen,
Yes.
dime
Yes,
a dozen.
absolutely. It's happening more and more and more.
Absolutely. And so we're going to have that as well. So I definitely believe in that 1,000%. And dragons, that's a big one. That's a really big one that I think Angela and I need to work on
Yes,
that
is
one together.
very dear to my heart as well.
Yeah.
And I have had a lot of dealings with dragons and dragon realms, and I do know that in a past lifetime I was a red two-headed dragon.
Oh,
But I also have a dragon that is one of my protector animals.
okay. Fair enough. Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
definitely talk about that one. I think you and I can maybe do a presentation on that one together. That's it, because it's a
I'm
personal
sure.
thing. Because that's something that's been coming up a lot for me recently, and a lot of people are coming up with dragons. But I digress. I want to say thank you again, Angela, for being with us this evening. It has been an absolute treasure. And Kelly says Angela always has interesting topics and enjoyed this podcast. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. We love you,
Thank you, Kelly. I
Kelly.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Always nice to talk to you.
Yeah. And
And it is totally my pleasure to be here. If I can help just one person and I can guide somebody and steer them a little bit closer to where they're supposed to be, that's what I'm meant to be here for. That is part of my mission.
absolutely.
I am fully aware of that.
Absolutely. And you have so much that you're working with, and you have so many tools, and you are going to really be one of these light workers that we are going to be working with, and you're going to be one of those pillars that we look to. So thank you so much, Angela, for being on the show and
Thank
sharing your
you.
gifts with us. Thank you so much. And I want to say again, thank you to everybody for being with us this evening. If you haven't already subscribed to our newsletter, check out our website. And with our newsletter, you get a lot of this information, a lot of information about Angela and other guests that we have, and also some of the work that other people are doing and interesting articles. So sign up for our newsletter and find out more about quantum portals. And again, if you want to work with Angela, here's her card. You can see her information right there, Angela at thephoenixpassage.com, and check her out on Facebook at facebook.com, The Phoenix Passage. And we look forward to seeing everybody at the discussion group tomorrow. And until then, I will look forward to seeing you again next week, everybody, and enjoy your week. Okay, so thanks again, Angela. Have a good evening.
Thank you again. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Ta ta.